Next on Newsmax Prime, Hillary has to deal with more emails, creating more problems for her legally and politically. Plus, Jeb strikes back at the Donald. Will Trump's past statements start to hurt his campaign? Ed Klein covers both sides of the aisle. And another cop killing, this time just outside Chicago. Newsmax Prime starts now. Good evening and welcome to Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, another cop killed on duty, this time in a suburb of Chicago. More on that a bit later. But first, Hillary's email scandal continues to grow. 7,000 of Secretary Clinton's emails released, more than 125 of those now deemed classified. The emails cover everything from politics to policy. Dick Cheney was making media rounds earlier today, and he was asked about this email scandal. The vice president held nothing back.
I think it was sloppy and unprofessional, that it reflects a lack of understanding about how easy it is for adversaries to tap into communications, to get involved, for example, obviously, in reading email, as we know now is very extensive. The Chinese recently picked up the files of everybody who is currently working for the federal government. Now, the situation strikes me, maybe she went into it ignorant, but I find that hard to believe. She's an intelligent woman. She spent a lot of time in the White House. You should not operate in the way she did, and I've got to believe it was not consistent with U.S. State Department personnel. It certainly wasn't consistent, apparently, with the way we handle classified information in the federal government.
She should have known better.
I think she should have known better.
You think the Russians and the Chinese have her emails?
They've got my personnel records. How can they not have her emails?
Former Vice President Dick Cheney. For more on this story, we're pleased to be joined by Edward Klein. Ed is the best-selling author of the book Blood Feud, The Clintons versus the Obamas. And he joins us again tonight from Newsmax, New York. Ed, we thank you for your time, and it seems like every time you join us, the background on this story, to use Lewis Carroll's great phrase, well, it just gets curiouser and curiouser. What's your takeaway from last night's email release?
Well, I totally agree with Vice President Cheney that this was sloppy and unprofessional, but I also think it was illegal as well. I mean, she knew as a former First Lady how important it was to be totally open and transparent. And when she was First Lady, she made sure that the telephone system in the White House was changed so that her phone calls and Bill's phone calls did not go through the switchboard. So this is a pattern of behavior that she's been following for many years.
It turns out the emails that were released last night were not only about public policy. Some dealt with politics, including a rather strange memo from David Brock, the journalist turned Clinton supporter, on how to impeach Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Apparently, Brock was upset with Thomas going back to 1991. And there was another email that had the term gefilte fish on the subject line. In the body of the email, Mrs. Clinton asked, "Where are we on this?" A code term, apparently, using gefilte fish. Your take on all this code talking and all the politics?
Well, Hillary once claimed that her great-great-grandfather was Jewish. So maybe that's where she got the gefilte fish from. I don't know. But, obviously there was a lot of paranoid stuff going on through these emails. She was in constant touch, for instance, with Sidney Blumenthal, who is so toxic that the White House refused to let her hire Sidney Blumenthal in the State Department. Instead, he got $10,000 a month to work for the Clinton Foundation. And Blumenthal and she constantly, according to these new emails that we've seen, were in touch with each other, cooking up all kinds of conspiracy theories. This is just one of many kind of curious stuff that was going on in her State Department.
I'll ask the question, what of Joe Biden? Are you still hearing from your sources that he's going to hang back till post-New Hampshire to maybe get in the race?
You know, nobody really knows what's in Joe's mind. I've been in total and constant touch with the Biden people, and they confess that the vice president simply hasn't made up his mind whether he's going to announce in September and challenge Hillary now, or wait and see if she implodes in Iowa and New Hampshire and then step in.
Ed, let's cross to the Republican side of the aisle. Donald Trump and Jeb Bush both have new ads out. They're attack ads. Let's take a listen, then we'll get your reaction on the back end.
Yes, they broke the law, but it's not a felony. It's kind of it's an act of love.
Partial birth abortion.
I'm very pro-choice. I am pro-choice in every respect and as far as it goes.
As far as single payer, it works in Canada. It works incredibly well in Scotland.
The fact is that 25% for high-income people, it should be raised substantially.
Do you identify more as a Democrat or a Republican?
Well, you'd be shocked if I said that in many cases I probably identify more as a Democrat.
So these attack ads are out. Ed, can Jeb really go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump?
Well, you know, what Jeb is doing is he's hitting Donald in the most sensitive part of his presentation, which is that Donald essentially has no policies. What he is a personality. That's what he's selling. And when you attack Donald Trump, and I know this from personal experience as a journalist, if you attack Donald Trump, he will come back at you 10 times. And that's why Donald is hitting Jeb as hard as he possibly can, because he feels that he's under assault from Jeb Bush.
And of course, Jeb's infamous comment that illegal immigration is an act of love. In terms of all the crime committed by illegals, that's going to be tough for Jeb to shake.
Well, it is. And in fact, he'll never shake that. Jeb Bush has had a terrible run as a campaigner so far. He was supposedly the guy with $100 million in the bank. He was supposedly the guy who was the #1 in the field. And ever since this has begun, this pre-primary, if you will, he's been slipping into single digits and going nowhere. And I think the problem with Jeb Bush is he's not a very good campaigner, and he's not seen by the base of the Republican Party as a true conservative.
We'll have to leave it there. Ed Klein, as always, we thank you for your time. And as always, you can read about these stories and other big stories on Ed's website. Find it at edwardklein.com. Now, this reminder, you can get your copy of Dr. Ben Carson's book, One Nation, absolutely free. All you have to do is pay $4.95 to cover the cost of shipping. Plus, when you order this free book, now listen to this, you'll receive 3 trial issues of Newsmax magazine. And what's more, you'll also get 2 trial issues of Health Radar. And all of those things come to you at no additional cost. So understand what's at stake here. You've got a $50 value for free. All you have to do is pay shipping and handling. You want to know how you can take advantage of this offer? Why don't you pick up your phone and call 1-800-485-4350. That number again, 1-800-485-4350, or online, go to newsmax.com/Ben. Still to come, border security and illegal immigration remain hot-button topics here, but now Europe faces an immigration crisis of its own. Ambassador Andres Simonier reacts. Later, another wild day on Wall Street. So with the economy on shaky ground, what does that mean for your money? Stephen Moore offers his perspective. But first, is there a war on police? We'll have more on that officer shot and killed near Chicago as Newsmax Prime continues.